Hello, fellow showman. Professor Laszlo here, reporting to you from our Florida circus winter quarters, Circus Bone Pile Acres. Recently, while digging through one of the nearly 50 show wagons, circus wagons, located here at our winter quarters, I uncovered this ancient dusty relic. This is a open reel quarter-inch magnetic tape recording of an interview I had done in the early 90s, I'm going to say 91 or 92, with legendary showman Rudy Jacobi. Rudy Jacobi happened to be my next door neighbor. And in his career, he had owned a half a dozen circuses and he'd been to half a dozen World's Fairs. He began his career in the 1920s as a sideshow magician, pitchman, and ballet talker. And Rudy, at the time that this recording was made, was in his mid-90s and was probably the most experienced showman I had ever met. Of course, I never gave up an opportunity to pick his brain, and we were sitting around my living room having coffee. I happened to have this Wallensack recorder nearby, and I was cutting grind tapes for my back-end shows, and he commented that my tapes were as good as any that he had ever heard. And I commented that he had been known as a legendary talker in his day, and as far as I know, there were no recordings of his pitches. So in the interview, he gives us several sideshow pitches and talks about his career at the World's Fairs and in the circus business. So without further ado, I give you Rudy Jacobi. Let's give it a listen.
One of the important things, of course, in showmanship and presentation of various attractions of which the public, the entire world over, are always interested in seeing something new, something different, and varied types of attractions. And being in this business for quite a number of years, I have had the very fortunate experience of working with various types of things, and some of them entirely different one from the other. And of course, the presentation, getting back to repeating myself, I'm saying is a very important part of the operation. For example, a number of years ago, I had some small horses which I'd gotten from a rancher over in Arizona, and they were very popular. And we had several paintings made showing they were a little bit exaggerated, of course, in spots. Showing the Indians taking the ponies, picking them up by the tail and dropping them in a suitcase, which was a little bit far-fetched, of course, but it did the job, and similar paintings of this type. And our presentation was very simple. It was a complete repetition over and over again. It obviously would drive you crazy, and some I've had people tell me, my God, he's up and ready, got that thing going again. And that's what would be your popular what I could say, presentation of it. You say, have you seen the horses? The little wild horses from the Grand Canyon of Arizona. They're wild, they're woolly, and they're alive. Have you seen the horses? Horses from the high plateau, brought out by the Indians and on exhibition here now. Have you seen the horses? Little wild horses from the Grand Canyon of Arizona, brought out by the Indians, and everybody wants to see those wonderful little wild horses exactly as you see them on the paintings. Little wild horses. Have you seen the horses? Little wild horses from Arizona. They're wild, they're woolly, and they're alive. And this constant repetition over and over and over did business for us. A man by the name of Cal Lipes was in charge of the little horse show, and this was with the circus where you had to have it up in the morning and had to have it ready to go by the time the people started to come out. And people would come on early, and the first thing they could hear in regards to anything else was, have you seen the horses? Little wild horses, and this went on and on and on, till it really became quite a thing, and we'd use that for quite a number of years. And one big thing, I took it over to Germany and put it into German, where we used to say, of course, das kleinste Ferdi gesehen, and this is the ganzes kleines Ferdi in the ganzen world, and people would go in to see what it looked like. And yeah, they say, yeah, so is this. And it went over big over there also. And had a hard time getting the management to understand that I thought it would go. And I bought a horse with a very, very long tail, but he was a midget horse. and very small. The tail, I guess, was 4 times the size of the horse, and long. And we still stuck to the same pitch, only, of course, it was in German. This gives you some idea of some of the things that you go into. That's just one of them, of course, of many. And of course, I've worked in many, many different places and with many different shows of different kinds. For example, in 1939, worked with the World's Fair. I was there 2 years. I was there 1 year working for Stutz Brothers, who had a show called Dances of the World. And the second year, I was there for Sally Rand, who was doing her fan dance and had 7 shows on the midway there. We called it the Gayway at that time. And at the fair, World's Fair in San Francisco. And we had the Dances of the World had a presentation where they would bring the girls out in front, of course, and explain to the people that these young ladies, of course, participate in this program. And we had one featured dancer we called Rosalie. And we'd used to say, when you see Rosalie dance the Parisian Cape dance, like the way they dance in Gay Paris in the wee hours of the morning, the beads of perspiration will roll down your forehead and drop on the ground as large as walnuts. All we ask that you be over the age, I should say, of 18 and under the age of 80, because if you're under 18, of course, you wouldn't be able to understand it. And if you're over 80, of course, you couldn't stand it. And always got a big laugh from everybody. But it made the people come in, and that's, after all, what it was all about. And remember the pitch with the sideshow pitch with the stuffed kazarium. I kind of like that. We like that one? I really like that one. I enjoyed that. You mean the one we used at the World's Fair on the Sally Rand show, where we used to have this beautiful girl come out in front instead of a kind of a plexiglass enclosure, and she just had a kind of a fancy cape wrapped around her, and beautiful girl in beautiful satin make, and hair done fantastic. And the show was actually called Miss America, the most perfect girl in the world. We all dressed in cowboy outfits and the big hats and the blue suits and the white shoes, and we looked pretty sharp. And it was a really very good show. The show itself was very good inside. It was a boudoir scene, of course, and built up to a large crescendo at the finish, and it was quite a shocker for a lot of people those days. That's back, we're talking about 1940 now. And people would say on the recording, we would tell about how the arms and the length of the arms, and how you notice the contour, the form of the young lady, and why she was chosen as Miss America. And this went on, and finally at the finish, she was behind a curtain, which was kind of a gauze type of curtain, a see-through type of thing where you could see her, but she wasn't actually in front of you. She was and she wasn't. In other words, you could see what she's doing, all the movements very clearly. Perfect lighting, and everything was really it was a nice sight to see. A very classy performance, let's put it that way. And everybody went out talking about what a classy performance it was. And then at the finish, then she would just, they would say, in bidding you goodbye, she says, "Okay, Miss America." And the lights would kind of dim down, and she would drop the whatever she had on there, period. And this was, of course, quite a thrill for the young men at that time, even in 1940, because a lot of things have happened, of course, since then. Anyway, the young lady that was standing out in front of us, just telling you about a moment ago, we used to say, people would say, I'd say, I heard that remark, but please don't go home and tell your friends and neighbors that this young lady is, you saw Miss America, because she is not Miss America. She was a third prize winner in the contest to select Miss America. She is Miss Texas, and she comes from a town called Waxahachie, Texas. And when you see Miss America, it'll be something you remember the longest day you live. We just brought this young lady out to show you the type and caliber of entertainment that awaits you on the inside. And I'm sure you've all noticed across the street that we have The World a Million Years Ago, which is the same type of program they had at the Chicago World's Fair in 1933, except for the addition, of course, of King Kong, which you see on the back out in front of the big platform up above, so to attract attention to it. And I always tell people that inside, of course, if you'd like to see a lot of stuff Kazarian and one thing or another, why, that's fine. But if you'd like to see live entertainment, and of course, most people do, that here's Miss America, this is absolutely for you. I know that you're going to enjoy it. Just getting ready to give another performance now, and the young lady down there at the box will be more than glad to wait upon you. We don't have any specialty tickets or anything, but it's the regular price for everybody. And come on in and see her, Miss America, in person. The one that says, have you seen the headless girl? The girl without a head, alive, breathing, and without a head. Can you believe that? But it's the truth, because seeing is believing. And when you see this young lady exactly as I have described her to you, then you are going to believe. I know you have to believe. And I'm sure the pictorial paintings on either side of the doorway will give you some idea of the story behind all of this. There's always a story behind these things. And I know that they will absolutely convince you. And when you see this young lady, it'll be something you'll remember the longest day that you live. Believe me, you will always talk about it. You'll tell your friends about it. And this is the young lady that you read about in the newspapers, you heard about on the radio, saw on TV, in a special television program covering this remarkable, and actually, this is the greatest medical achievement in history, and it is the miracle of the 20th century. And you owe it to yourself, to your family, to everyone to see the headless girl, alive, breathing, living without a head. Don't miss it.
And that's my interview with legendary showman Rudy Jacobi, recorded in the early 90s here at Circus Bonepile Acres, which happened to be right next door to the winter quarters of the Rudy Brothers Circus. Hope you all enjoyed it, maybe learned a few things. This is a lost treasure, so share it with your friends who are interested in the early days of showmanship. And of course, this is something that the historians in the group of showmen that I fraternize with will probably be really interested in. So long for now. Professor Laszlo, signing off.